Welcome to this Evolution podcast. My name is Mac Grant, and I want to talk about something that has to do with financial, basically being able to manifest more. And this topic is called Know the Score. This is also in reference to one of my mentors, KT, talked about this often, but it's a fundamental piece of no matter how wealthy you are, how broke you are, this is something you have to know if you're going to change something. And when people do not know the score, they can be wealthy and go broke, or they can be broke and go broker, or sometimes they'll win and not know why and then crash. But knowing the score is very simple and can be broken down into many different things. But I want to give you a little bit of a picture on how to separate a few of these things. If you've never heard these concepts before, you might have to hear them a few times in order to get it. But when it comes to money and business, if you're not using some type of a leveraged tax advantage and you're paying taxes, then you need to learn a little bit about taxes. There's a score with taxes. There's a score with business. There's a score with your individualism. And you want to be able to separate those. And so to give you an idea, how I kind of look at things is I look at like Mac as two different identities. There's Mac as a business, and then there's Mac as an individual. And then there's also this other one that I'll talk about, but it kind of goes into the individual, but it will be like the individual is the one that runs the investments, you know, more of the fun type of stuff or things that pay residually, the legacy type stuff. Whereas the business side of Mac is the one that he needs stuff paid for, right? Like he's got a house expense, a car expense, a clothing expense, all these different things that have to be dealt with. And those things are the business side of me. So I look at myself as two different identities. And then there's the subject that says you have to pay yourself first. When you think you have to pay yourself first, this is a very confusing concept, especially for me. It was like, how do I pay myself first? People are like, you got to take 10%. I'm like, yeah, but taking 10% and setting it aside doesn't actually reward me in any way. It doesn't really have a benefit. So how is this actually serving me in some way, shape, or form? So it never really felt like paying myself until I learned about compound interest and different things in legacy investments and things like that. So once it got to there, then I realized it's like, hey, you're never going to get ahead if you're not putting money aside to put that money to work to make something grow. And when you look at, like, for example, if I go work the next month and I make $10,000, that means I'm required to work every month to make $10,000. And it usually typically the time I put in is the same to make the $10,000. And if I want to spend more time with my kids, I either have to sacrifice money or I sacrifice my kids, because the time taken away from the job goes into the kids, which means less money. However, if I take the money and I put it somewhere where it grows on its own, it may not pay me today, but in the not so long future, it will get big enough that it begins to pay me. So instead of needing to make 10,000 here, I might make 9,000 here and then make 1,000 here. Well, the 1,000 that I made over here is pure time. That's time I get to spend with my kids. Now, as I go, it's not like I'm going to stay at 10. I'm going to continue moving this bar higher and higher, like less time, more money, less time, more money. So I have different focuses. One is, how do I reduce my time and increase my income? That should be one of the focuses that you should know the score on that, knowing what's required to do that. I also have to say, how much money can I put away? But let me digress a little bit and back up even further. I've grown up from essentially poverty and bad money management skills, bad time management skills, bad disciplines, all of that stuff. So if you're the person that's sitting there saying, okay, how do I, like, I'm making less than I earn, I don't have a job, I'm dealing with this, blah, 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 whatever. First question I'm going to ask is going to say, what are your minimum expenses? In other words, in order for you to maintain life without anything else right now, what's it take? And no one can tell me. People that are in this situation, no one can tell me, because every time that somebody begins to do this activity right here, they no longer are in the situation. It just goes away. It's like magic happens, and it won't make sense. And the people at the bottom struggle with it the most, The people at the higher levels, they just do it. It changes. Everything works. It's crazy. I've done it myself. I do it over and over again. Every 3 months or so, I have to look at it and reassess because I change that much over that amount of time. So knowing the score is not what I owe to everybody. It's what I'm going to pay this month or this week or whatever, but typically it's a month. So I have a cell phone bill, I have a car payment, I've got insurance, I've got house payment, I've got a credit card payment, I have subscriptions, gym memberships, utilities, and like some little stuff. I think I pay $15 a month for Adobe. I pay $30 a month for a marketing program. I pay, like these little things. It used to be my monthly expenses were, a year ago were about $18,000 a month. Got divorced, had to backtrack, had to bring a lot of stuff down. Now it's sitting down around 4,500. 6 months ago it was around 85, 9,000, right in there. And so like I've been able to reduce a lot of that as I lost a lot of business and different things, but I sat down and went, okay, how much is going out and how much is coming in? And by doing this and sitting down and writing down, okay, here is everything that I'm going to pay this month, or at least everything I want to pay this month. It did not include, okay, I've got a debt. I owe somebody $2,000 here. I owe somebody 10,000 here. I owe this. I was like, no, those aren't monthly payments. Those aren't. So don't worry about those yet. Those go in a different category. And what I suggest is you get in a Google sheet, basic, simple, write down the name of the thing. Like I had a credit card that like right before the divorce got basically maxed out. And so it's like Amex, what's my monthly payment? $2,100. What's the balance? 48,000. So I know what the balance is, but the monthly payment to keep it on track is 2,100. That's a monthly expense, not the 48,000, the 2,100. Now, if I'm in a situation where I'm like, that's not a good idea to pay that, I'm not going to put it there. I'm going to set it to the side and say, this is what I need to take care of, but I'm not going to put it there. And there's a few programs that I was dealing with where I had to call them and say, hey, you're going to have to wait on this. I'm not going to pay you. I'll take care of it when I can, but this is not a smart move for me. I need to fix a problem here with the divorce and everything. I got to fix it. And so, I'm going to change this up. And then once I get this under control, I'll start funneling you a little money. So if I were to do that, what happens is I tell them, okay, this is where you're at. I'm not going to do anything. I need to get control. Let's say that month I get on the plus side. I bring in, let's say $9,000 and I needed 8,500. I have an extra $500. Okay, great. I'm going to give these people $50 each, right? Like just to say, hey, I'm trying, whatever. Or I might say, no, I'm going to hang on to that and then do it the next month or whatever. But the goal here is not to pay anybody off or do anything. It's very simple, very, very simple. So let me bring it down to this just one thing. How much money's coming in and how much money's going out that is coming in and going out? How much? That's the only question we start with. Whether you're crushing it or whether you're not crushing it, even somebody that's killing it and everything else, they still need to know the score. They still have to know this thing if they're going to grow. Otherwise, what happens is you wind up hiring people, and then these people are like buying stupid stuff like printers and things. It's like, what are you doing? Like, why did you? What the? It's like you wind up paying for subscriptions that you don't even know about or don't even use anymore, and you don't know the score. But when you have just a simple Google sheet that says, this is what it is, you click the top of it, it adds it up, and at the bottom it says, hey, since you paid this stuff off, now it's $4,500. But when I first did this, and I was like, it's $17,890. Shit, like how much am I bringing in? Like, well, okay, here's my coaching income that's coming in. It's $12,000 a month. Yet I need to pay 18,000. And then I'm watching it get destroyed as this business is being broken down. This is a problem. So I sell some stuff. Well, I brought in this much, but this isn't consistent. This was a one-time buy-in. I still have a problem. So what has to be removed? And I begin removing things and then working on the other side to raise the other one. But you have to know those two numbers. You have to know this score of how much money is going out and how much money is coming in, not based on my debts, but based on my monthly, what I'm going to pay. That's the only thing that matters. And people would say like, well, I have to pay this much. Well, if you have to pay, even $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 or 10 or 100,000 or whatever, then but let's just say you have to do 5,000, and you made 4,000. Well, I have to pay 5,000. No, you don't. You don't actually have to pay. Like, now you might not pay your car and they might take your car. You may not pay your lease. You might get evicted. There's these things that might happen or might not happen, but you don't have to. Saying I have to is you giving away your power. And the reality is no one can make you do anything. It's your choice. I want to. That's a better way to state it and a better way to deal with it. But if you don't have the money coming in, then you just have to be like, I can't. But knowing the score says, here's my priorities. Where does the money go first? Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to make my car or my house payment before I make a credit card payment. Well, my credit score is going to go to shit. It doesn't matter. Like you're in a position where it doesn't really matter. You're like, you're screwed. Like, stop. And in which case, if it's going to go to crap, then stop paying all the credit cards until you can manage them, and just plan on making more cash. So in my case, at one point I was paying, let's see, about $3,700 in credit card debt at one shot. About 1,400 of it was pure interest, which really sucks. This is a kind of dumb position I put myself in, but then I wasn't expecting a divorce. So I was putting money on a credit card, paying it off. And then all of a sudden, this happens. But I'm like, this sucks. I still continue to pay it. But if I wouldn't have brought in enough money, I very easily could have said, nope, I'm done right there. $3,800 cash in my pocket. So if I was making 5K, but I needed to make 9,000, oh look, just stop paying the credit cards for now. Now I've already got 5. I need a few hundred more, and I hit my number. Now I'm in the plus side. Far more important to get that number plus than the other way around. It's hard letting go in things. It's hard not paying people when you're supposed to, but you can always get it recovered on the other end. What you can't do is recover while continuing to go downhill. That's a very detrimental place to be. And that's kind of what I did for the first 3 or 4 months. I was selling stuff. Probably would have been smarter to sell stuff, pay stuff off, but I thought, oh, I can catch it. I'll get my company going back. Yeah, it didn't work. And so I kind of lost that ability there, but I was still able at one point to say, okay, this is where we stop. No more trying to catch the falling knife. Stop, grab on, and the whole time I'm watching the score of what's happening. So therefore I know exactly where I'm at. And when I hit that point where I was like, I have to make a hard decision here. And I had to reach out and make phone calls and connect with people and say, hey, you're not getting paid this month. Well, what do you mean? I said, you're just not. Like, I'm just calling to let you know what's going on and what I'm willing to do. And I negotiate and I find a plan that works for everybody. And people don't always have to like it, but it's like, listen, either I do this and I recover and you get paid, or I don't. And at some point, this is all going to be destroyed and you're definitely not getting paid. So you take a pick. You want to fight me on it or not? And, it's just something you got to do. It's a hard decision, but you put yourself there. Like I put myself there, got to do it. And the cool thing is, not long after that, I went from like upside down, making less than I was making, made a decision, exited a lot of stuff out, immediately went to the plus side, then started gaining money, investing money to make more. That helped me make even more. And it just continues to climb from there. This isn't my first go around doing this type of thing. And so this time it's much, much quicker. But the number one factor is you have to know the score and don't overcomplicate it. Just simply say, how much am I going to put out and how much is coming in? And if this is the amount coming in, where am I delegating it to? And then you figure out where you're delegating it to. And then you work on 2 things. So one thing, know the score. How much is in, how much is out? Then you work on 2 things, cutting expenses, raise and increasing income. A lot of times when people tell you to get a budget, I don't believe in budgets. Like it's the worst. It's the most detrimental thing to manifesting that you can ever talk about. What you do is you just know the score. That's what you need to know. You may need to work on yourself with disciplines, with energy, with childhood healing, scarcity, FOMO, like fear of missing out. There's a lot of emotional shit that comes along with these types of struggles and everything else, and wanting something that you can't afford and having delayed gratification and all those different things. But I'm telling you, if you want to be better than where you're at, you have to know the score. There's no way around it. So if you're have an idea of being successful, making millions of dollars doing this, and you don't know the score. If I can't have a conversation with you right now and say, hey, how much money goes out every month for you? And there's like a couple numbers here. One can be like, well, I know what my monthly expenses are, but I usually spend much more than that. Okay, fine. Like, for example, my known expenses are about $4,500 a month, just right around there. My monthly of what I basically have been spending currently is about 1,500 over that, because I typically go somewhere. I attend a training. I travel at least once a month. Jen goes with me. We have a good time. I'll take the kids out to eat, like whatever it is. It's so typically I'm 1,500, 2,000 over that every single month, just because that's what fuels me to continue going and building on that. And then not only that, there's a secondary number to that that says, how much am I investing every month? And, and back before 6 months ago, it was like none. It's all going here. Since I caught up, now it's like $2,000 or $3,000 a month. So it's not hard for me to make $10,000 a month. So I'm like, okay, so I've got 45 here, 15 here, and the rest needs to go into investments. Or sometimes it doesn't go into investments. Sometimes I wind up so much time away that I don't make that much. So the income's down a little bit, but I'm so far on the upside from where it was, it's good. And as I have the investments and then making returns, now it's less of my time, increase in income. So remember, just refresh, know the score. How much is coming in? How much is guaranteed going out? What is that number? When it comes to things like food, fuel, like those are mine that kind of evolve a little bit. I have general numbers that say if I'm still going to eat the quality of food that I eat, but I do it on a budget and I don't eat out, I'm about $600 a month, right in there. And that, I think that actually gives me like once or twice a week still eating out. But the rest of it's pretty much I'm cooking something at home. I eat pretty much just meat, like a meal a day type of thing, but a lot, like a pound of meat type of thing. So it's kind of more expensive typically for like good grass-fed raised beef, organic, all that stuff. And then the fuel, I travel quite a bit, so there's a good chance my fuel bill is going to be $500-600 a month pretty easily. So I know what those numbers generally are, but they can be moved. But I still know if I don't make $5,000 a month, there's a problem, right? Like there's a serious problem. So, but when I hit it, then I free my mind to say, what else needs to be done? Where else am I buying, selling? And I'll also break it down weekly. Did I make this much this week? Can I invest this much this week? And it's something that, because it's tracked on a sheet somewhere, that my mind it just kind of knows what to do. And I just manifest the solutions as it goes. But when it wasn't, it was like things just keep going downhill backwards, because the scarcity will rob you of being able to create more. So know the score, then work on reducing the expenses always, and increasing the income. That should be an equal effect. Even if you're super successful and wealthy, there's still this idea that says every once in a while you need to go through and look and see where your money's going, to go through and say, can I clean house? Okay, if I'm paying for a membership, but yet I'm traveling all the time and I never get to use it but 2 days a week, is it still worth paying for? Maybe not. Maybe you do something different. If I'm paying for marketing information that's no longer serving me, or maybe I'm paying for multiple ones, and I'm like, well, what's my return on this? Is it actually returning the cost of the investment that I'm putting into it, because it's a business? Which is it, right? So later in some different ones, I'll get into a little more of the training when it comes to the legacy versus business. But first, you just need to sit down. I'd suggest just notepad it, notepad. Okay, what are my monthly expenses? What are the things that I'm going to pay for or need to pay for every single month? No matter how successful you are, this isn't just for broke people. This is a fundamental rule of just business in general, and being a good person and manifesting and everything. And if you want to manifest, the score. It's like I said, it's like magic. Everyone that does this winds up in a better opportunity. I've watched people manifest better places to live, better jobs, more money, random money coming in from nowhere, discounts, deals, people handing them things, better car opportunities. It's just like magic happens when people know the score. It'll blow your freaking mind. And so work on that, write all that down. Start with the simplest thing first. Write down, rent, car, insurance, phone, utilities, food, gas, these monthly things that you're going to pay for. You write those down, figure out what those are monthly, any subscriptions, anything like that. If you find some in there that you don't need, can't spend the time to cancel them, get them off there. Put them in a Google sheet, click that top button and say, this is how much I'm making. Then go look at your pay stubs and go, how much did I make last month? And look at it. And I also suggest when you do this, go to your bank statement or your credit cards or all of them and go through them and be like, where did I actually spend here? And there will be numbers where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna spend that every month. Maybe it's Starbucks. Yeah, that's a pretty normal expense. I'm just gonna add in however much I spend at Starbucks. I mean, if you go to Starbucks once a day, average $5 a day, probably, right there, $150 right there. That if that's a normal behavior, you need to put that in. Like it needs to be $150 a month for that thing. And so you look at that and then this is where all my expenses is. It might surprise you. It might be like, oh man, I'm doing pretty good. Maybe I could take this extra $1,000 I make and put it towards an investment, pay myself first. Or maybe I need to cut some of these expenses and take some money out of this, at least 10%, put over here for investments. Because the reality is, there's opportunities out there where if you just took $10,000 and put it away and forgot about it for 30 years, it could turn into $100 million. Right? Like, especially if you strategically do it and know who to connect with. You might not understand that yet, but I guarantee you in the last year, the amount of people that have blown 10 grand is ridiculous, where they didn't need to. They either overspent on a car, they were overspent on things, paying for subscriptions. And it's like, if you just took this money, even if it was 2 years, the last 2 years, 2 or 3 years, if you just took that money, pulled it out of there and just stuck it somewhere that counted and watched it grow and grow and grow and grow and just kind of like ignored it and completely forgot about it because it was like, no, this isn't my money anymore. That's Mac's money. That's the legacy Mac's. He don't let me touch it no more. And it's just going to sit there and grow and grow and grow and become this massive legacy. And I'm going to train my kids how to do the same, and they're going to train their kids how to do the same. I'm going to make sure this is set up forever. And my family becomes $1 billion family just based on something so simple. But you can't do it if you don't know the score. And when you see the reality of what's going on in your life, you're going to be like, oh, well, yeah, I could do that. That's not so hard, whatever. So, and I'm in the process of training kids to do this, training adults to do this, fighting some adults to do this because they don't want to look at how painful it is. But it's like, we don't care. We're not emotional about this. It's just getting the numbers so we can see them. It's just that easy. So know the score, start there. That's it.